Okay, picking up again where we kind of had started back when we were at Stein's Deli that time. US 90 again, very close to where we had left off, just past the backside of Tulane University. Didn't record it this time, it's on other videos, but we're on this Jefferson Avenue. My grandpa used to live right down that street. Luckily he left before it flooded. There's Harry's house. My buddy Harry goes to games with us. Honk against abortion. Okay. They wanted to build a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic there, but all they have is dirt because none of the contractors will want to agree to build it because they're intimidated to build it because of the anti-abortion groups. So it may not ever get built. Napoleon Avenue. Don't want to go down that street because it's under big. You thought Claiborne was bad. This is Claiborne now. Now, for a bit of information, Jefferson Highway becomes Claiborne Avenue once you cross into New Orleans. Okay, but you can see downtown buildings now. There's the Plaza Tower and One Shell Square, but it's still US 90, but it's Claiborne, named after first governor of Louisiana under the U.S. administration, 1803, William C.C. Claiborne. Famous governor, Freemason, and designer, helped design the flag of Louisiana with the pelican. Another interesting thing is that pelican feeding the 3 babies, chicks, with the blood from its breast is an old-time Masonic symbol. There's the housing project, the new one. They demolished the old one. There's the new one. But they're trying to make it look more like houses than some prison complex. And the old housing projects look like Soviet-style gulag type things. But anyway, we're heading eastbound in a general eastbound direction. If you stay on 90, you'll wind up in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, but actually at this point we're heading mostly in a north-northeast direction. Sort of a northerly direction. This will be the area called Central City. Okay, once we passed Napoleon Avenue, we entered Central City. Called Central City because it's in the center of the city. And it's a very flood-prone area, believe me. This all flooded because it used to be a huge swamp, and I mean full of water, flooded swamp. But they drained it and built houses. And it flooded. Jackson Avenue, named after, you guessed it, Andrew Jackson. Runs from deep in Central City to the river. All of these streets run from deep in the Central City to the Mississippi River. If you go down that way, you'll get to the Mississippi River. Okay? This is a statue for Martin Luther King Jr. You may have heard of him. And this part of Melpomene is named Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, but it's most of it, the street is Melpomene. Okay, now we have to go on this overpass here because otherwise we can't go forward because it's blocked by a railroad, Amtrak Railroad. There's the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. There's downtown. Interestingly, Martin Luther King. A lot of people don't know this. His name was Michael King when he was born. Michael King. But for whatever reason, his father decided that they would change their name from Michael King Sr. and Michael King Jr. to Martin Luther King Sr. and Jr. There's Poydras Street. That'll take you to the river and Harrah's Casino. Another interesting fact about Martin Luther King Jr., Michael King Jr., was that he smoked cigarettes. Not that that's any kind of like impugning his character, just did smoke cigarettes. Not an uncommon activity in the 1960s, nor was it an activity that was frowned upon by anybody, really. Although, you know, that was after the Surgeon General's report in 1964, cigarettes considered bad or whatever. Now, you know, it's frowned upon, but he did smoke cigarettes. So does President Obama, although he said he has tried to give up the habit. As many people can tell you, it's a very difficult habit to give up. The intention is there, but the execution is bad when it comes to people trying to break the habit. Here's the famous Canal Street, one of the widest city streets in America. That'll take you down to the river. Here we're coming up to Old Graveyard. You'll see the grave of the voodoo priestess Marie Laveau. Except that we're not. And then there's the housing project behind it. Iberville development, which is going to be demolished. And here's a campground. A mobile home campground, which is a rental. Lots of people stay here when they come to New Orleans instead of getting a hotel. Stay in the... Now this was a major street. We're still in Claiborne, and there's the new project there, new Lafitte housing development. Like I say, trying to make it look like houses instead of prison compounds. But in 1965, they started building Interstate 10 on top. It was really 1953, but in 65 they decided to build the interstate on top of Claiborne. And they cut down all the oak trees. They had beautiful oak trees all the way down the street, and they cut them all down. And now you have this. Beautiful, isn't it? Right underneath an elevated expressway. Progress. Okay, I'm gonna get up on the elevated for a little bit. Heading north. Coming up to the Circle Grocery, which is reopened. The Circle Grocery got flooded so bad. Fields, Paris? No. The Champs-Élysées. called a lock, which is a water elevator, because the river and the lake are two different levels, water levels, so you can actually go look at it and see them open and close the lock. That canal, you'd be in New Orleans East, which is actually still part of New Orleans. The city of New Orleans city limits stretch actually to the Mississippi border. Actually, stay on Highway 90 all the way. You literally get to Mississippi once you leave Orleans Parish, but we ain't going all the way to Mississippi. Bridges here. There's the high-rise bridge built 1969. You can see the structure for the 1940 bridge, US 90 bridge over there. And then straight ahead you can see maybe a little bit of this structure for a suspension, what you call those bridges? Drawbridge. That was built in 1919. That drawbridge, right, if you look through there, is next to almost underneath the high-rise bridge. So there's three bridges. The 1919 bridge, which is underneath the high-rise. You'll see it. That should take you to it, but it's not very much to see. Then you got the 1940 bridge over there, US 90, and then the 1969. There's three bridges right next to each other. And if you go to the river, there's two bridges. And then if you go to the lake, there's a bridge. This is old Gentilly Highway still. Old 90. And you actually cannot go across it right there because they would never built a bridge when they built a canal. They jacklegged it over to the 1919 bridge. But that's the old 90, old Gentilly Highway. And here's the new US 90. I say new, you know, like 1940 new. And Chef Mentor Boulevard it's called. Over here it's called Claiborne, but then when you get to this part it's called Chef Mentor. Chef Mentor. They called it that because an Indian chief was lying to the French explorers about where to go. Chef Mentor, lying chief. And that will take you all the way to Mississippi. Oops. This flooded so terribly bad during Katrina. This area is called Gentilly. And but the street didn't flood. Just the areas next to the street, because this is a ridge. Gentilly Ridge runs from the Mississippi River all the way to Mississippi. And they built the highway on top of the ridge. But everything off of it was just a swamp, so it all flooded. Now we're coming into an area called Gentilly Woods. Built in the mid-50s. Former neighborhood of David Duke, who you may or may not be familiar with. It's just a, whatever you want to call it, lower middle class neighborhood, as always was ever built to be. But you can see how much is abandoned still because of the horrific flooding. And then some houses were just torn down. There's a brand new school they built there. We'll go back to the main street, get off of this street, which is Louisa. Go on Mirabeau. Now, a lot of people moved right back in and renovated their houses, and some of them, as you can see there, elevated the houses. Others just left them empty, gone, shot. Just depending on who got flooded. There's one they totally renovated. There's one that's been elevated, but they haven't done anything with it. Look like they painted it. Just, if you'd have come back here right after Katrina, you'd have seen utter devastation. I mean, it was beyond belief. I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. Yeah, they're elevated. Empty lot, used to be homes there. Hang out on the road. Now, this is Pontchartrain Park, different subdivision. Also built in the mid-50s, and there's a golf course in the middle. It was built to be around a golf course, and Pontchartrain, because it's next to Pontchartrain, Lake Pontchartrain, excuse me. These people, this had to be the first house renovated after the storm, this one right here. And these people basically just got in their house as soon as possible, a week after the storm or 2 weeks after the storm, and immediately started renovating. And I mean, it must have been, it seemed like 2 months after it was already redone. Everything else was still devastated. Somebody practicing for flag team. There's the golf course, which is a public golf course. That was turned into the woods. I mean, they didn't touch it for years after Katrina. It was being overgrown by woods, and then they finally cut it all down and finally redid it, turned it back to a golf course. Here we are at Southern University at New Orleans. Totally flooded by the storm. They had to renovate the entire campus. You can see there's still some work they're doing on this administration building. A lot of it hasn't even been redone yet. They didn't even rebuild the library yet. But they're slowly kind of bringing it back. The main, like the gym didn't flood. But they have the basketball games. You can see it's high. We're going under the railroad track. And the interesting thing is there was Southern University at New Orleans. But right across the street, FBI, but that's not what is the University of New Orleans. Why would you build two state universities across the street from each other? Well, because in 1955, in the mid-50s when they decided to build these colleges, they had segregation. Southern University for black, University of New Orleans for white. And then that program was abandoned, and now they're integrated. There's the new dorms for Southern University, or SUNO, as they call it. And over there, they're getting ready to have the baseball game for UNO versus Southeastern Louisiana, and that's why I'm here. Okay, we're gonna pick this up in a little bit after the game.